I'm Rita Riker, President of the Board of Focus, Greater Syracuse. Thank you to the John Ben Snow Foundation and Memorial Trust for its sponsorship of this forum. We're very grateful for that sponsorship. We're thrilled to have three local experts who will explore the future of transportation in Central New York. They will provide an overview of transportation planning, infrastructure investment, and mobility initiatives across Onondaga County and the City of Syracuse. I'm going to introduce each of them very briefly. There's more on our website about these folks, and then we'll get right into it. So first off, Jim D'Agostino, Director of the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council, responsible for administering continuous, cooperative, and comprehensive transportation planning for this region. SMTC's planning jurisdiction covers Onondaga County and segments of Madison and Oswego County. It provides the forum for cooperative decision-making in the development of transportation plans, programs, and recommendations, and encourages the participation in sessions. You can fill in all the blanks there. Betsy Parley is Regional Director of the New York State Department of Transportation, as well as Director of the I-81 Viaduct project, which at $2.25 billion is the largest infrastructure project in New York State DOT history. Since joining the DOT in 2005, Betsy's held positions in design, maintenance, and traffic and mobility in the Central New York region. She first joined the I-81 Viaduct project team as a project manager in 2021. So I've been doing this for at least 5 years now. Yeah. Chris Tuff, CEO of Central New York Regional Transportation Authority, known probably more often as Centro. Chris joined Centro in 2016 and has held several positions, including Deputy CEO, Vice President of Administration, and Director of Operations. As CEO, he is responsible for ensuring functional accountability across all departments of the authority and for assessing and monitoring administrative and operational activity in all 5 counties in which the authority operates. Welcome to all 3 of you. Jim, I think you're up first.
All right, thank you. My name is James D'Agostino. I'm the Director of the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council. I'm at a distinct disadvantage because everyone knows New York State DOT, everybody knows Centro, and aside from my staff who is here, who the heck knows who we are? Exactly.
We're going to find out.
All right, so we're a metropolitan planning organization, or an MPO, and a metropolitan planning organization is a policy-based planning body made up of representatives of local, state, and federal authorities. In the case of the SMTC, you see our member agencies listed on the screen there. We have 13 voting members. We are a council. We have regional members, Central New York Regional Planning and Development, Center State CEO, Centro, various state, county, and city agencies. They make up the MPO. We are staff to the MPO. I am not in the MPO. My staff that works for me is not in the MPO. We are staff to the MPO, which is the 13 member agencies. Next. Our planning area is on the screen. It's all of Onondaga County and a bit of Oswego and Madison County. Okay, we have 3 core functions. The first is long-range transportation planning, looking out 20 plus years to provide a blueprint and guide to the transportation and development in our community for our vision, as well as providing transportation goals and objectives, performance measures. Then we do an annual planning activity called our Unified Planning Work Program. That's the studies you might have seen around our community. If we do a corridor study or a large or small effort. And then in my mind, probably the most important thing we do is the Transportation Improvement Program, because that's where funding meets projects and federal funding manifests as transportation projects in our community. Next. So why does the MPO exist? Do we really need another bureaucracy in 2026? I have to let my personal opinion to the side and say, yes, you do. We exist because, Congress made us exist about 50 years ago. Every metropolitan area with 50,000 people or more has to have an entity like us if you want to have federal highway and federal transit money expended in your community. So that's why we exist, federal mandate. But really, what's the good of having an entity like us in your area? We facilitate collaboration of governments and interested parties in the public. What does that mean? We make sure the left hand and the right hand can talk to each other. They come around our table. The city talks to the county, talks to the state, talks to Centro. Every month, they come around our table and we talk and we communicate. We make sure everyone knows what's going on. You'd think that happens all the time, but you need someone like us to bring everyone together to make sure it all happens so that everyone's up to date on everything. We prioritize the transportation needs and make sure funds are invested appropriately. We balance the great need versus the limited funding. And we express the consensus of the community through our member agencies. We have 13 members around the table, and we work by consensus. That means you get people to get along. If you pay attention in Washington, you know that isn't very easy these days. But we work really hard and we get everyone to get along around our table because it's in the community's best interest. And most importantly, public participation and involvement. Everything we do is in full view of the public. It's all transparent. These aren't people in the back room behind a closed door making decisions. These are people making decisions in full view of the public in a transparent manner. Our annual planning work, we call the Unified Planning Work Program. It details federal highway, federal transit funds that we use for planning in our community. They're done by SMTC staff at no cost to the people who ask for the studies. It can be the city, the county, a town, a village, the state, Centro. We've done work for all of them. It doesn't cost them anything. We use our staff resources. Sometimes we have to hire a consultant. It's a specialty service. We do large projects like the I-81 Challenge that morphed into the I-81 Viaduct project, which you're going to hear more about today. That was completed back in 2013, just to give you an idea how long planning takes to make it to reality. We also completed a BRT evaluation called Smart One that was completed in 2018 that Chris is going to talk about what Centro is doing with BRT today. Again, you see that there's a space between when you start planning about things and when things start to get built in the community. We do a lot of medium studies, corridor studies, like the Route 49 mobility study just completed this year. We do very small studies as well, trail or sidewalk efforts like the Cold Brook Creek Trail study completed a couple of years ago. Next. The Transportation Improvement Program is the document and process by which we fund all the federally funded projects in our community. And it's essential because you want to have federal highway funding on things like the 81 project, which you need federal funding on if you want to do a project that expensive. You need to go through our process, and it's good to be able to do that. Our projects are screened for eligibility and consistency with our long-range plans, goals, and objectives, and they range in size from the big, like the I-81 Viaduct project, to the small things like the Onondaga Creek Walk project. Before we had I-81, the vast majority of the resources were all spent on paving and bridge projects because we have a very vast and very aging infrastructure that needs to be maintained annually if you want to keep using it. The funding allocation process, we're a planning agency. We don't own anything. We don't build anything. So that's why people wonder why we do sometimes. But SMTC distributes federal funding for capital projects via a process of consensus of its member agencies. Like I said, we get around the table. We work. There's a lot of projects and a little bit of money. So we have to figure out, it's like triage, which projects survive and can be funded, which projects have to be set aside for future use. There's always more need than there is projects, and we have to get everyone around the table to agree on them. What are the priorities in our community for this cycle for funding? And in order, if we successfully do that, everybody leaves unhappy. If you've ever built a consensus process, that's how you know you did it right, because no one's happy, because everyone gets a little and gives a lot. That's how consensus process works. Any one of our member agencies could use all of the money. That's how many projects there are. But we can't do that. So we have to figure out which projects are actually the ones we can fund in a given cycle. And that's how the consensus process works. And it works pretty well in our community. There's not a lot of anger going on around the table. We try and figure out what to do. It's a disappointment when projects don't get funded, but it actually works pretty well. So our transportation system, we have about 4,000 miles of roadway, about 1,000 miles of which is federal aid eligible. That means you can use federal money on anything those roads need. We have about 547 roadway bridges. Next. From a transit perspective, we have about 2.7 million transit trips a year, 14,000 on an average workday. Transit ridership took a hit, and COVID hasn't really bounced back. Busiest transit lines: James Street, Salina, Court Street, Drumlins, Western Lights. We have about 85 miles of off-road bike and pedestrian facilities in the area, and 38 miles of on-road bike and on-road bike facilities. And that mileage expands each year. And what's interesting about that is when I moved here, we had 0 miles of on-road bicycle facilities 20 years ago. So while 38 miles doesn't sound like a lot, it's a lot more than 0, is what we had not too long ago. Next. So our Metropolitan Transportation Plan is a 25-year vision looking out to the future. The horizon year is 2050. There's copies of it on the table, as is copies of our atlas. The atlas, I think, is the more interesting of the documents. I encourage you to take a look at that. So for some context, we haven't really grown much since 1970 as a community. We've been pretty static. What we have done is we've spread around a lot. So the city of Syracuse has lost some population, but as a community, we're pretty much the same. Next. So that's our community. All the municipalities make us up. And you see the city of Syracuse is in the center, and geographically speaking, it's on the smaller side. And they've been losing a little bit of population. Next. But if you resize all that geography based on the number of people in those municipalities, you'll see the city of Syracuse, even though it's lost population, it's still the most significant entity we have in our community. So it is the population center, it is the demographic center, it is the economic center, and it is the geographic center of our community. So we cannot take the city of Syracuse for granted. It is the center of most things in our community. Next. So looking out to the future, sure we've all heard of Micron. I'm sure we all know what's going on in our community. So with all of the growth we have with Micron and all the other great economic development projects we have in our community, we are expecting 43,000 new households by 2050 and 71,000 new jobs. Predominantly, most of those are going to go in the city of Syracuse and the northern suburbs, according to our models. That's a huge growth for our community that we haven't seen the likes of before. So you can ruminate on that a lot, because that's big. That's big. So, but we have some issues. We have things we have to keep track of. We have poverty in our region. We have 30% of city residents living in poverty. That's not a great thing, especially if you look at the other part of that slide, which says 8% of the residents not in the city of Syracuse live in poverty. That's just a fact. That's something we have to deal with as a community and come up with better solutions for. So we need to ensure that all residents of our region can access quality transportation, housing, jobs, and educational opportunities. That map, the tannish yellowish areas show areas of employment, and the dots show existing employment centers. There's nothing really magical there. I'm sure you all know that. The upper right is a zoom in of the University Hill area. A lot of employment in the University Hill area. We got Micron up there. We have the Radisson Business Park. All the things you've heard of. But there's a couple things in there that surprised me, like the Erie Boulevard corridor. A lot of jobs in that corridor. I wouldn't have really thought of that until you see it on the map. But if you collect all the jobs on the Erie Boulevard corridor, it equals other areas of our community that you just don't think about it in that way. So we need to make sure that everyone can access all of these job opportunities everywhere in our community, regardless of their socioeconomic status starting out from. So let's talk about commute times to work. I'm sure with I-81, people are a little frustrated with some of their commutes on a daily basis, and 690, that's going to happen for a little while. But even with that going on, our commute times by car are low and congestion is minimal. I know people don't believe that. It's true. We have very low commute times. We have very low congestion. It's remarkably low for a metropolitan area. And that leads itself to how people get to work. Because it's so easy to get around here by car, most people, if you look at this bar graph on the bottom, drive alone to work. In the city of Syracuse, not quite as much, but still the vast majority. In the city, you also have some people carpooling, public transit, and walking and biking, but it's really easy to get around this community on a car, even when they're tearing the heck out of I-81. She can yell at me. Next. Increased transit frequency is key to enhancing service and attracting new riders, but it requires density and mixed-use development to be useful. So that's a map of the city of Syracuse and the transit lines, and you'll see that transit works really well in the city of Syracuse. We have the density and the mixed-use development in the city that it's really well covered by transit. Sure, there's things that can be improved, and Chris is going to talk about what some of those improvements are going to be. But the city's developed in such a way with mixed-use, dense housing development that transit really works. You get out of the city, transit ability starts to fall dramatically. You need density. You need. Rich Landrigan used to work at Centro forever. He said you need mass to have mass transit, and it's just a fact. Next. So looking toward the future, a couple things are true. The region's going to grow. Micron's happening. If you don't believe it, go stand up on Route 31 and count cars going back. The trucks going back forth full of gravel and cement. I do it a couple times a week when I drive past it. It's insane the number of trucks carrying gravel up there. It's nuts. And technology is going to change. These two things are going to happen. So we're going to be growing. Electrical vehicles are going to be taking more and more of a role as is technology and how we get around. Next. So with that in mind, if you want to consider the future, maybe you don't consider just aggregate getting around in a car for all of our trips. If you look at the length of work trips versus all trips, work trips tend to be longer. A lot of them are more than 8 miles. All trips, like going to the doctor, getting groceries, they're shorter, less than 2 miles in a lot of cases, 2 to 8 miles in others. What does that mean? It means you have different transportation options for some of your trips. Maybe you can take a bus, maybe you want to walk, maybe you want to take a bike. Maybe you have micro-mobility options, these cool scooters that you see kids trying to kill each other on every day out there. There's different options out there that you can use for transportation. It doesn't always have to be alone in a car driving where you want to go. And this is an interesting thing. This is looking at the pedestrian movements in the city of Syracuse and the areas around the city. You'll see that as you hit the periphery of the city of Syracuse, which, by the way, the city has great pedestrian facilities. There are sidewalks everywhere, literally everywhere, pretty much everywhere. You can get everywhere. As soon as you hit the city boundary, a lot of them disappear. So you have all those developments right outside the city boundary that are really good draws for people. And they get there, and what happens? The sidewalks end. And you have a lack of pedestrian facilities to get from where you are to where you want to be. We can do better. Next. So future needs, there's an opportunity to change how we develop and how we get around this region. Instead, we're going to grow. If we're going to grow, we get to choose how we grow. Let's choose better. People advocate for transit in this community a lot, but for transit, you need density, and we lack that outside of the city. Supporting that concept, Onondaga County's Plan Onondaga, their comprehensive plan, their first in a long time, has this concept of centers. And that map shows those dots are the centers that they're talking about. And those centers can have mixed-use development, housing, and other activity centers. Yet in the city, you see those little purple areas. That's areas that have enough density for enhanced transit to be feasible. If you have that kind of development on those dots, on those centers, you can start to see you can develop corridors where transit can work along those corridors as effectively as it can work in the city of Syracuse. That's the theory. I'm going to leave you with that. I think that's your last slide, I believe, right? Yes. So we're going to build things, we're going to grow. So how we grow and how we build, we get to choose that. If we do things like we did them in 1950, 1960, we're going to get the same future we have now. Maybe we can do things different.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, you're up next, right?
And I'll say if you were delayed by the 81 construction on your way here, let's think of this. You were delayed by progress. Someone coined that phrase. I can't take credit for it, but I do believe it. We have to remember when we talk about the 81 Viaduct project, what we will be seeing, what we will be getting as part of that project. Getting through that, I recognize we will all need some patience, but it's progress. So we can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to kick off real quick about, what does DOT do as a baseline? So our mission is actually to provide a safe, reliable transportation system that connects people and supports our economy. So that's a pretty broad blanket statement, but it really does kind of cover everything that we're part of. So what do we do? Next slide. So we maintain things. So we maintain our interstates and our highways, our local roads. We plow the roads. We maintain traffic signals and all the cameras that you see footage from sometimes. And we also do a lot of emergency response, and we partner with our, New York State Troopers, City of Syracuse Police to make sure that people are safe if there's an incident or something like that. But what else do we do? We build things. Clearly, Jim touched on, there's a tremendous number of bridges and highways. So we're building, small bridges. We're rebuilding, typical highways through a village in Onondaga County. We're doing safety improvements. So things like pedestrian crossings with those flashing signs, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We do things like that. And then we also have major capital projects like the I-81 Viaduct project and also CNY Forward, which I'll touch on in a minute. And we also plan for the future. So definitely in very close coordination with the SMTC, we're always looking at, what does this community need? How do we need to plan for the future? I appreciate what you said, that we want to think forward. We don't want to do what we've done in the past. So we're thinking about freight. We're thinking about economic development. Climate resilience, that's so important. So we can, we're building things that can last, not just 20 years, 40 years, 100 years, potentially. Mobility and safety is always important. And then partnering with our transit friends, making sure we're accommodating transit. So I-81, right? That's the big thing that's happening in our community. So where are we today? And Jim, I appreciate you mentioning the I-81 challenge. I actually have a slide on that. So, we have been talking about 81 and the viaduct for, 20 years. 2007, officially. Unofficially, I would say much longer. But we are now in construction, and we have been in construction since 2023. So these are just really kind of quick glimpses So the picture on the left is an overview of where all of the work is for the 81 Viaduct project. So a lot of times people think about the 81 project as just removing 81 in downtown Syracuse, but it's so much bigger than that. It covers areas in Cicero, all along 481, Valley, right outside, in the Inner Harbor, Krause, Irving, 690, and then of course, Almond Street and the area behind Syracuse University and the south side. So where are we today? Contract 1, as we call it, which is in the northern interchange of I-81 481, that is more or less complete. So what you're driving on is we're done. There might be some things that we're wrapping up, but that's the new operation. And again, a little bit of a different traffic pattern for people, but hopefully people are adjusting. But that work is essentially complete. Contract 2, which is in the southern interchange, that's again where I-81 and 481 meet down in the valley, the roundabouts on Brighton Ave, the new interchange at East Glen Ave, that is operational and more or less complete. We have some buttoning up to do, some finishing work, but that is complete. And what that contract did, notably, was it provided a whole new interchange at East Glen Ave that did not exist. So people that live in the valley have that direct access to northbound and southbound, what today is I-81. So a huge milestone to have that work complete. We still have some work to do on the 481 corridor, specifically over CSX. That takes a little bit of time. If everyone's driven over that, you've experienced the shift in traffic. I can assure you that that bumpy ride will get smoothed out. So I'll just add that. Next slide. So then contract 3, so this is where we are. So we're in this picture, we're a little bit down the road that way. But what this contract does in the Inner Harbor is basically combine the I-81 southbound interchange to Bear Street. So if you've ever driven along I-81 southbound, there's some very closely spaced on and off ramps that were frankly unsafe. So we're putting them all at this new on and off ramp that's open at North Clinton. As part of this contract, we also are rebuilding 3 bridges, so Bear, Court, and Spencer. So right now what you're seeing is that Court Street is under construction. We have already opened Bear and Court Street bridges. On those, we included shared use paths, sidewalks with buffers. So when we plow the snow, because we have to plow the snow at Syracuse, it doesn't land on the sidewalk. It's such a basic principle, but we have a buffer. It's about a 5-foot buffer. So the snow goes there, it doesn't go on the sidewalk. So things like that, we work very closely with the City of Syracuse to make sure we were thinking about how all the users are using our roadways. One of the things we don't really talk about all that much, and I think it ties to resiliency, is as part of the 81 Viaduct project, we are doing a tremendous amount of work underground. So water mains, sewer mains, it's a combined sewer in the City of Syracuse, which is not really allowable anymore. So if you're impacting it, you have to separate the sewage from the road runoff. And we're doing that by installing a huge trunk line in the road. When I say huge, it'll get up to about 10 feet wide and it'll be 30 feet underground. So we're talking like major infrastructure underground that you don't see. And when we install that, we impact a lot of other utilities. So City of Syracuse, like many northeastern cities, we have water mains here that are over 100 years old. 81 Viaduct project, by its work, is replacing a lot of that. So a tremendous amount of infrastructure, not just that you can see like bridges and highways, but it's the things underground as well. So one of the things, and this is where I'll tag my friends at Centro, is obviously there's disruption to motorists, but there's also disruption to people that use public transit. So we meet regularly with Centro and make sure they understand what our work is, where we're working, and how it could potentially impact users of the transit system. Also the routes that their drivers might have to take. So it is constant coordination with many partner agencies like Centro. This is my chance to kind of take a pause also when we talk about the 81 project, not just infrastructure, connecting a community, right? We all know that the viaduct is a barrier in our city. Obviously modernizing aging infrastructure, but also things like workforce. So we have a local hire incentive on our project, which means 15% of our workforce has to be from the City of Syracuse or the Onondaga Nation. And we actually pay the contractor to hire people to do that. So this is not only transformational from an infrastructure perspective, but transformational for families that live in our community. Next slide. So then just some more updates on where we are with construction. So those are the first three contracts that I just mentioned. So Cicero, Valley, here. This work should be wrapping up in this area the end of this year, springtime. We also have work along I-690 in Krause and Irving. That will take a little bit longer. We have to build 690 in stages so we can maintain traffic so people can actually use 690. And so that's, we're tracking for that to be complete sometime next year. And then our fifth contract is in the kind of the southern half is by Van Buren and Almond Street. So near the south side, back side of the dome. This is where our roundabout will be installed. This is where, if you're headed north, say from Cortland, and you're destined for somewhere in downtown Syracuse, where today you drive on the viaduct across the city. In the future, you will be driving on New Business Loop 81, where it will be at street level. You'll winding road, street trees, median, where it all culminates in a roundabout. And then you're the gateway into the city of Syracuse, downtown Syracuse. So that's what we're building right now. Van Buren is closed, so we can build this roundabout and we can do all this infrastructure, and that should be back open at the end of this year. So a lot more work to happen in that contract. We have to build a whole new railroad bridge. We have to realign the railroad a little bit, so it's a lot of work. So that's more 2028 completion. So we're kind of telling the story here. Next slide. So what's coming with the 81 Viaduct project? So probably people have heard the news. We have the largest contract in the history of the DOT that was just awarded, and that is the reconstruction of I-690. It's the green line here on this map that goes basically from Krause all the way past West Street to Leavenworth Ave, and that's to bring I-690 to today's standards. So shoulders, so cars can pull off the road and be helped by emergency responders. Curves in the road that are designed for today's vehicles and speeds. Merge lengths to on and off ramps that are a safe distance. So that's why 690 gets built. Also because of all the infrastructure that goes over it and under it. The big news for us to do this, I-690 eastbound between those points will be detoured during construction. We looked at every feasible way to do this and to maintain traffic, and this was the most reasonable solution. So that's to come. This contract just got awarded, so we'll start to see some preparatory construction this fall. The last few contracts we have with 81 is finishing off I-81 north of 690, and that's kind of that like pink area to the north, installing the rest of that drainage trunk line, which is that purple line. And then last but not least, Almond Street, removing the viaduct over Almond Street and building that boulevard space. So we have a long journey still. Thank you for your patience. When I think about how the city of Syracuse will look when this project is done, I don't think any of us can really imagine it. So, slide. So, and Jim already touched on this. I have to give SMTC a lot of credit because the 81 project started as a planning exercise. So the SMTC does planning things for small little projects and the mega projects like 81. And that's where we had the I-81 challenge. And that's when a tremendous amount of community outreach happened where people could literally go up to a board with a Post-it note and say, I would like bike lanes here. I would like to be connected here. I would like this. And a lot of that informed our project and took us through the environmental process and took us into where we are today in construction. So thank you to SMTC, very good partners. Next slide. Well, what's to come? So that's just, right, that's Syracuse, that's the 81. Micron. So we just announced our notice of intent to look at the transportation improvements related to northern Onondaga County and the tremendous growth that's expected out there. And that's not just Micron, that's all the suppliers, and that's all the development that'll come along with that. So this is just a little plug, I guess, for our project. We are having scoping meetings, which are public meetings that the public can attend, give us feedback, and those are on July 30th and August 6th. We have a website, which I should have put on here, but we can certainly get out to everyone. And this will really be kind of, do you remember what we did for the 81 project with that community input? That's what this is. We're doing it all over again, but just in northern Onondaga County. Next slide. And that was it.
Okay, there we go. All right, so we can skip this one, introduction, but I am Chris Tuff, the CEO of Centro. Been with Centro 10 years. Since I came back in 16, I was there for a short cup of coffee back in 2007. And came back, but Centro's been part of my family. My mother started as an operator with Centro 25 years ago and worked her way up. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, we talked Centro. Even though it wasn't my first, I didn't grow up wanting to be a bus driver, but certainly Centro was always part of the family. Had several family members work here. So it's really a passion to be with. But focusing on today's conversation, really what is going on with Centro. And I'm going to focus today on Onondaga County, being here in Onondaga County, but we've done quite a few things around our 5-county area. So Oswego, Cayuga, Oneida County. We took over Portland County last year, March of 2025, and then certainly Onondaga County here that we've just celebrated 53 years as public transportation provider in Central New York. But continuing off of what Jim said, the Smart One study is what is the bus rapid transit? And in the 2007 conversation of 81 is actually where the Smart One study originated as far as how do we understand and what do we do for this traffic issue? So 20 years later, here we are with BRT. In conjunction with the bus rapid transit is Better Bus Onondaga, which is a complete system redesign of the Onondaga County system. And we have not done a system redesign, effective system redesign in over 20 years, almost 2 decades. If you've probably been part of the system or a user, all we've done is cut service due to financial constraints or limitations. We've never really pivoted to say how do we make the service, make the cuts, but right size it for the community. And that's what we're here to do with this project today. And then Move On Demand service is going to be part of this system redesign, something we launched 2 years ago in the city of Rome as a pilot program with a system redesign that we did in the city of Rome. I will tell you it's been very successful. We, in 2 years, have almost 95%, if not higher, of 5-star ratings of the service that we provided. And it's essentially Uber meets public transit. So it's merging those services through an app or through a phone call or through a website. Next slide, please. So jumping in quick with the BRT, and I'm going to run in chronological order. So the BRT project was initially the larger project that came out. So from the 2018 release of the Smart One study from SMTC, as Jim said, not for fun stuff, but like any good construction or any good project, you need a good foundation. The SMTC staff did that for us, and we appreciate their hard work. They continue to do that and then see that project now come to life. So this is the 2-line corridor that has been finalized as the BRT route. So you'll see the James Street service coming from Leo Ave up to Shop City down through downtown on Salina Street to the hub, and then that'll continue out to OCC via South Ave. We also have the original line that was from the north side up towards Destiny, USA. That'll travel north Salina to the hub, and then it'll continue on up to the University Hill area. When the study originally came out, the South Salina Street corridor was a question of the impact on that, but certainly when we revamped this study in 2023, looking at the post-COVID era, we knew that there is a need along that corridor. There's also a food desert, there's a transit desert there, or not a transit desert, there's significant transit along Salina Street, but a food desert at Valley Plaza. And we knew, how do we connect individuals from that corridor to Valley Plaza to be able to get to a shopping center, get to places that they may need to grocery shop or be active in the community. So we decided to extend the leg down Salina Street to make that happen. Next slide. Oh, no, I'm
Sorry, Zoom's having trouble. They're not able to see your slides.
Uh-oh.
Try to move that.
Do you want me to keep going or would you like me to wait?
Keep going.
Okay. So what is BRT? Bus rapid transit. There's certain criteria other than just saying high frequency service. So all day long, these frequencies on those essentially 5 legs or those 2 corridors, you're going to see 15-minute service or less, which is a significant improvement to the 40-minute hour service that you're seeing today. Optimizing stop placements or key locations. If anybody's ever been to New York City, you have the local train and then you have the express train that only stops at certain locations. That's essentially what BRT does, but with buses, it will not stop at every location. It'll only stop at designated locations that we've identified along the way. The other piece of it is traffic signal prioritization. You may hear the term TSP. So this technology is something that is in The city's cabinets for the city lights. Right now, the fire department can use it, and only the fire department can use it. So as they're approaching a red light, it'll turn the light green in case of an emergency when their device is on. The city has recently upgraded their system to have prioritization levels. So the fire department will only have top priority. We're never going to trump that. But with the bus system, what we can do is now have access to that. So we are not going to have the ability to turn a red light green, but we'll be able to keep a green light longer if it's going to go yellow than red. And that's going to be strategic in making sure that we can navigate this 15-minute frequency. High quality boarding stations. So our BRT stations are going to look different. They're going to feel different. They're going to have different amenities. So the typical shelters you see in the community now, the green or black shelters, these will look different. They'll have real-time signage. So they'll have optimized technology to make sure that you know this is a BRT. This is a high level, different type of service. Bike racks, leaning benches inside of them. The real-time signage will tell you the next bus arrival. So that information will all be in there. And then certainly around those areas, improved pedestrian infrastructure. So we went out and did a study. We're surveying the areas, making sure the sidewalks, access to the shelters is adequate, crosswalks, things like that. So that is all part of our design to bus rapid transit. So the next wave is really when we're looking at this and saying, how do we take the next steps? And one of the things we realized as we started looking at bus rapid transit is based on our current system to overlay bus rapid transit on top of it. Where I mentioned just a few minutes ago, 40-minute service, hour and 20-minute service. If I take one of those buses and get downtown, it's great. I can connect the BRT route if I'm going to Destiny, USA, or going up towards Shop City. That bus will constantly be running. I may only have to wait 5 or 10 minutes for that bus to come. But if I'm coming down one of those BRT routes and say I want to go to Camillus, depending on the time frame in which I get downtown, I'm now waiting still 40 minutes for that bus. Our thought was if we go that route, we're going to actually reduce the importance of bus rapid transit. It's not going to make it effective to say, well, you've increased frequency on these 5 lines. If I'm off of those 5 lines, I'm really on the same old Centro system, and it doesn't really make it practical for me to reuse public transit to get through the community. So we started looking at travel data and started looking at what our ridership is, what is our service standards, how are our routes performing, are there unmet travel needs, growth demographics. As Jim mentioned at the close of his conversation, 50 years ago, transit looked significantly different. Even for us, our transit agencies were privately owned. Syracuse Transit, S&O, they were all privately owned in the area. When the suburban sprawl happened and everybody started moving to the suburbs, they started having harder time getting out to the suburbs to provide that transportation. But even back in the day, at that time, everybody moving to the suburbs still worked downtown. And if we look at this today, everybody wants to live downtown and all the businesses are now in the suburbs. So our travel models are different. Well, our system has to adapt to that. You're seeing your Microns, your Amazons, another Amazon plant coming online, but they're not happening downtown. They're outside. Next slide. So from there, what we had to do is really start looking at the opportunity of we need a community engagement and we really need to look at a system redesign. So kind of building off of some of the work we did with SMTC, we had Exploring Tomorrow's Transit, which was one of the first waves of conversation to say, what does the community want? What do you want to see? Where do you want to go? What are the points of interest? Similar to DOT's outreach, you see the Post-it notes, we had maps, we had stickers, anywhere or anything that people wanted to see about the service. And we took that feedback and went back to the drawing board and said, okay, how do we now adapt what people want to see in our system to make them hopefully want to use it? And we talked with riders, non-riders. We did pop-up locations in areas. We were up at SU. We were at some of our main points where riders typically ride. Salt City Market, Destiny USA there in the top left corner, to make sure that we were getting that feedback. And through these phases, I think I have it on the other slide, we've talked to probably north of 2,000 people. Certainly significant number of people to give that feedback and get survey responses to make sure that we're meeting their needs. Next slide, please. So this long,
I think I skipped you.
there you go. So as I talked about North, this is just a better bus. So we started with public surveys and we did our website upgrade. So you can still go see this and it's active today. It's centro.org/better bus Onondaga. You could also just go through our centro.org website and you can get to this landing page. But it gives you an overall view of what this project looks like, why we implemented this project, what some of the feedback was that we've had. It also gives you a great tool to look at our existing system. And then if you move the slider over, it'll actually show you what our proposed system is. And I will tell you, this proposed system is still in a work in progress. We went to public hearing in April of this year. We've gotten roughly 50 or so comments back. And we are going through each and every one of those comments to make sure that we've evaluated it. We've looked at it. Is there a solution? Is there something that we didn't consider from the previous outreach phases? And making sure that we're taking those into consideration before we finalize our design. Next page, please. So some of the things that we've heard in the outreach, and we're calling it phase 1 and 2, is really just specific to the Better Bus Onondaga. So people wanted increased frequency and service across the network, high demand transit corridor areas. So some of the main lines that Jim highlighted: James Street, South Ave, Salina Street, Westcott area, West Ave, Western Lights. All day services. So they wanted to see longer hours of service. Sometimes in certain areas, our service ends at 6 o'clock. More direct connections. There's actually was some feedback of people saying, I don't want to go to the hub. Interesting. Okay. So we'll take a look at that. Better connections to the suburbs, certainly to employment centers, and capturing shift work. And some of that is very hard to do based on our frequency. Just overall customer experience, making sure we improve our shelters, crosswalks, first and last mile connections, and then just being prepared for regional growth. And that's some of the key important factors that we're trying to accomplish with this. Next slide, please. So when we took all that back, essentially it's a regurgitation of what you've seen on the last slide of everything we've taken into consideration of creating more frequency, bringing in more point-to-point direct contacts. We've actually have a few routes that will not connect through the hub to connect the east and the west, the north and the south. Improving access to some of the employment centers. Certainly, we know Micron and the expansion along the corridor. When you look at the system redesign today, we get closer to Micron. We're not putting service directly to Micron as they're building construction and some of the things are happening. There's a lot of things we don't know. But once we get closer, we are having conversations with Micron to make sure we're doing that. The introduction of moved micro transit to 3 zones. So that'll be coming here to Onondaga County, which I had mentioned. And then just, the diverse need, what people are looking for, because we have commuters, we have employees, we have students, transit-dependent individuals, seniors. Everybody's service and everybody's origin and destination are different. So how do we make sure we capture them? Next slide. So this is a high-level proposal of what we've put out there. So if you go to the Better Bus Onondaga, I believe there's already an update from this proposal. But some different things, but this is the finalization. The purple lines are the routes that are there. The yellow lines are some added or changes that routes didn't exist previous to the study. The purple kind of cloud, the 3 bubbles, are the on-demand zones. And then the red dotted lines are the routes that are going away. And some of those were temporary deviations. They were areas that were under, there wasn't a lot of ridership on. And we're sending a 40-foot bus through certain parts of the community or neighborhoods where people aren't riding. So how do we move the bus where people want to be? How do we get on main thoroughfares to help speed up the bus and the frequency? So this is what's there. And I will tell you, there's still more to come on this. Next phase. So Move. So I highlighted the Move on Demand service. So there is an app. It is called Move. Currently, this runs in Rome, New York. The buses will look like the buses on the left, so they are handicap accessible, mobility device accessible. It's essentially our Call of Us vehicle, so the same service we provide via Call of Us, to provide the Move service that is open to everybody. And you could book a trip as early as 2 weeks out, or you can book a trip 5 minutes from your pickup time. Through an app, as I mentioned, you can also call our main line, and I forget what the number is. 315-356-MOVE. Somebody will pick up the line and help you schedule that. So if you're not technology savvy, you don't have a smartphone, or you can also go to the website and book your trip right online. That'll connect you to inside the zone. So the way it's set up right now in Rome is if you are traveling from origin to destination without connecting to a fixed route bus, it's a $4, significantly cheaper than an Uber or Lyft. If you connect to key points that we've identified for fixed route, say for instance the Fayetteville Manlius area, if you're coming in from Manlius and you connect at Fayetteville Town Center to the 162 or the 62 bus, and you're connecting into the rest of the service, it's $1. It's the same fare you would pay today if you boarded the bus for fixed route. But if you want to travel throughout the community, you want to go from your house to get your haircut, to go to the grocery store, to go get Chipotle, It's $4 in either direction. Next slide. What is the timeline of these projects? So as we talked about with bus rapid transit, really the system redesign has to happen first to make sure that we don't put faster service out and then make it irrelevant or inconvenient for the user. So we're actually going to hopefully final board approval in August next month to finalize our public hearing and give the feedback from public comment, which will then implement the process of the changing of the routes. So we're hopeful for a launch in summer of 2027. And then BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, will launch in the summer of 2028. Some of you may have seen, and I'll throw it out there, the article that was in .com the other day about the system redesign, why we pushed the date back. Part of that was the public comment and making sure that we did a solid evaluation. The other side of this is we've done a system redesign in Oswego County that launched in January of 2026. And I will tell you, probably the worst thing or the biggest feedback we've gotten is a system redesign in the middle of the winter is not a good thing for many people. So we also wanted to make sure that we have the right climate to move shelters, put new signs in, and make sure that it's all done in one shot. I can tell you in Oswego, we weren't able to move signs or shelters or do a UFPO until April. So it just delayed it and made it a little more inconvenient or confusing for the customer. The other side of this, and I got to say this because I have an audience, we're hiring. And in order to make all of these projects successful, we need operators. So you're certainly more than welcome. Great benefits. Share it with a friend. Any of our jobs you can check out at centro.org/join our team. We're also doing 2 open houses. One will be in Syracuse and one will be in Portland, August 15th, 16th, and the following Saturday. So those 2 Saturdays. And those are on our website, and you'll see commercials stated from there. And then last slide, our goal is to continue to moving communities forward. As we've talked about the changes coming down the pike, the system redesign is put into place as what we know today. Certainly we know expansion is happening. One of the key things that I didn't talk about is we are disrupting the lineup system. So right now, every bus converges on the hub every 40 minutes and then goes back out in the community. So we build another Amazon up on Henry Clay Boulevard or Morgan Road, and it adds 3 minutes to a route. In order to make all of those buses reconvene on time back at the hub, everything has to change by 3 minutes, or we have to figure out along that route how we can make up 3 minutes. So we're going to disrupt that. We're going to eliminate the lineup system. The buses will run on frequency. So I may come in from Camillus and wait 3 minutes, and then the Morgan Road bus will be there. But if we have to add 3 minutes to the end of that route, now I may wait 6, but we can now start making sure we're connecting to those points of interest going forward, which currently we're not able to do. So a lot of things happening and a lot of things changing, but by doing that, we are now able to start preparing for future expansion where we see housing and businesses pop up. We can now start making deviations or adjustments to our service that don't disrupt the rest of the service. And that's all I got for sure.
So like to focus on transportation regarding orthopedic boots and how one gets around. But thank you to our panelists. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the folks who are here remotely. We had a number of questions submitted in advance. We don't have long. We'll see if we can get to maybe one from the audience here as well. Ingrid wrote, asking about how transportation might adapt to an aging population. I'm not a demographer, but I dare say our community is more than some others, and I would imagine as time goes on, as a cohort of older folks increasing in relative size. I think some of you touched on this a little bit, but I wonder what you might say about how that aspect of our community affects the work you have done or will do.
Well, I think part of what it is that as people move out of driving their own car, which we all will face at some point in our lives, like this, you have to come up with what are the transportation options. And the more you live in a location that has multiple services at it, the better it's going to be. If you're in a rural farmhouse out in southern Onondaga County and you don't drive your own car anymore, I don't think a bus is stopping by your house tomorrow to get you where you got to go. So location matters too. And part of it is, you can live wherever you choose, but where you choose has implications in terms of your transportation options. So I think that if you live in a more multi-use area, you're going to have more transportation options, whether they're transit, whether they're other types of options. So I think that's gonna matter, and we've already recognized as a community, Onondaga County has a housing plan, that we don't have all the right types of housing for people in our community as they age. So I think that as people age in place, well, maybe they don't age, maybe they age in place in our community, but not in their dwelling unit, and then move to a different dwelling unit that has enough services, so they can still be mobile in their community.
Gotcha.
That's my thoughts.
All right, thanks. Do you all want to come in? That's
Sure, so I think one of the things we always look at when we're designing a highway is all users. So whether they're using transit and they need a bus stop that's ADA accessible, or they're walkers that need to walk in the snow, you know, like I mentioned, those spaces that are maintainable. But we even do things as simple as we're always adjusting the time for crosswalk. And we take into account elderly people and how slow they walk. So those times have changed over years. I think it was like, you know, I forget how many feet per second we used to think people walked, and that has slowed down tremendously because of our aging population. So that directly coincides with how long that walk percentage is up. So that's one of the very simple things that we do. And if we know for a population where there are a lot of pedestrians, whether they're elderly, slower walkers, or maybe more, like at the university area, we give more time to those pedestrians. So that's a very easy way we could, you know, kind of address.
well, as one who's slower than what was a month ago. Thank you. Chris, please.
You know, certainly from a transportation perspective, we're seeing this today. And our call bus service, as I mentioned it, for individuals, it's a complementary ADA service to our fixed route service. That population pre-pandemic, and I'll use that as a benchmark, not to continue to harp on the pandemic after 5 years, but pre-pandemic is about 190,000 rides that we were providing on an annual basis. We are north of 220,000 rides today.
After I imagine going down quite a bit during, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of the transit dropped off significantly
Yeah.
during the pandemic, but as we've come out of the pandemic and people are back to living their lives, but the population, because of the aging population, we're seeing that ridership increase significantly. So that's putting a burden on us, as you know, we're still trying to recruit drivers and find drivers, but looking at other programs and options for the individuals. So the move service is an avenue. If I live and do everything in Manlius, Fayetteville, Manlius area, I can go to Medical Center East, right? I'm trying to think, because I always call it West, and I'm
North, yeah.
North Med, Northeast Med.
Yeah.
You know, I can go to the haircut, I can go to the grocery store. Well, you can use the on-demand bus to get around. It has mobility options, it has accessibility functions. From the county's perspective, they do offer an Oscar program. So we work in a partnership with the county that subsidizes anybody that lives in the county that qualifies for the program at least 2 round trips a month to be active in the community, go to the grocery store, go do something. So you may not be in our service area, but you're still provided with that service. We do have our call bus program, and we do have half fare discount for our seniors on all of our routes, whether it's fixed route or it's our call bus service. But you know, using those options and trying to look at that, we're always trying to focus on how we can improve more. And we do have you know, help with providing this service as we've seen growing demand. That we have to just look at it different and adapt where we can. And providing those services, there's a need, and we're seeing it, and it's not just in Syracuse, it's across the transit industry as a whole.
Interesting. All things being equal, is one more likely to take a bus if one is older than younger? Is that, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of factors, but just curious.
You know, I think, I wish there was an easy answer to that.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I think it's a mind fuck. You know, certainly I'm more open to get on a plane with 300 individuals that I don't know, but they may be hesitant to get on a bus with 60 people. Wow, that's a mind fuck. And I think that's some things to say, what's the difference? Because there is the accessibility is there. And in some cases, we could probably get you downtown faster than a car. But how do I change somebody's mind?
Right. Well, thank you. Let's get a question from the audience. Sir, please. We gotta keep it quick because we don't have much time.
What is Micron doing and vis-a-vis the larger business community, either individually or through some of the chambers, as far as coordinating their internal rideshare programs for their own employees to facilitate them? Are they, you know, providing a bus service or a rideshare program? And I'm just wondering if that's being coordinated with some of the other large employers to have internally driven. I mean, is Micron setting up a program of their own to facilitate their people getting to and from in coordination with the transit programs, so you're complementing and not overstepping on each other? Because it seems to me Micron is a foundation for bringing other businesses either directly or through the chambers.
And we're just about, I'll cut you off there. I apologize for that, but just so they have a chance to answer before we gotta, please.
Yeah, and I think understanding where you're coming, I can give you two things. So we are in communication with Micron. We have been since it's been announced. What does transportation look like? Certainly working with the folks to my right and the staff to make sure what does transportation need to be up there for bus service. But from a perspective directly with Centro, Micron set up their community foundation fund, 500 million, 550 million. We did get an award on that to provide direct service from our hub to the front door of Micron. 2.2 million was awarded to us early this year to start and help with that pilot program. As Centro as a whole for all businesses, we've recently, with updates to our fare box and our technology, we are now providing what we're calling a business pass program. So you can use either your mobile app, we have smart cards, but working with businesses to provide transportation is a benefit to their employees that the company can subsidize their transportation. So it eliminates congestion, takes cars off the road, helps with the parking issues that we're dealing with downtown and we're working with SMPC on, and the city knowing as parking garages are coming offline, where do people park and how do I get downtown? So we have a business pass program that we've put out there that employees can register for and involved in with us to allow their employers to allow their employees to use our system to get to and from work.
That's your Jim. We're just about out of time. And any thoughts on this? Do you all want to come in? Good.
Yeah, no, I think that probably covers.
All right, great. Well, thank you. I'm sorry we're out of time, but I'll turn it back to
Yeah,
Rita.
just really quickly, thank you to Jim and Betsy and Chris. Amazing stuff that we've heard today, a lot of stuff that we've heard today. So we're very grateful to you. Also, thank you to One Group for this, our use of this facility. It's a tremendous gift to us and we appreciate it. And to the John Ben Snow Foundation for their sponsorship. As with all of our forums, we will be posting this on our site, focussyracuse.org, probably this afternoon, but if not, certainly by early next week. We will always gratefully accept any donations you have. You'll notice these tent cards. If you want to give us $5, $10 to help us move these forums forward, that'd be very much appreciated. It's the weekend. Have a great time. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful weekend. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for our folks virtually. Thank you.